What is up, you savages? This is the Protect Your Neck podcast, and I'm your host, Dan Tom. Analyst is work you could find over at MMAJunkie.com, but on this here program, the Protect Your Neck podcast, we break down high-level MMA. That's what we're going to do here tonight. Whenever you're listening to this, hopefully it's for the fight. Recording this just as weigh-ins are concluding. It looks like everybody is pretty much on weight, at least the people I was targeting. I'll skim through that, of course, the card in question: UFC Vegas 31, UFC ESPN 26, UFC Makhachev versus Moises. You can check the timestamps as per usual when I start that. It will be from top to bottom as per usual, and I will recap my picks and plays at the very end for those of you who are running short on time, and just for your convenience. Before that, it's just going to essentially just be some quick shouts, and I probably won't be able to get to everybody because there's a lot of people to shout, a lot of ththings to shout, and a quick recap of UFC 264. No, I won't be going into Zapruder footage. That's not, well, I don't want to say it's not my thing. I mean, it's kind of my job. But, as far as, by the time this podcast hits, everything's passed. I was so busy that I couldn't do certain podcast shouts to you guys. I apologize. But for what it's worth, I couldn't do my own till now, much less a recap. So no need to go too deep, but it was a good night. It was a good night on many levels, but a winning night relevant to this year's show. So we will definitely recap that, and then, we'll see if we can get this bad boy under an hour. You can call me out now if you're listening in the future. Yeah, man, it was a great week. I decided to try to... I did good, and then I think all the stress hit me this week, though. But I didn't stress during a McGregor fight week. I made sure to put that tweet out just because it's a tough week for many. And especially I believe the FOMO is like times 10 with the pandemic and whatnot, and those who were privileged and lucky enough to come out, there were a lot who weren't, and then amongst the media space, it can get It can get ugly, and I, amongst other colleagues of mine who I also love, I know they sentiment the same way. And one thing I forgot to shout about that in relation to that was I wanted to shout out the last episode to Chef Sam from MMA Junkie Radio. I know the junkies who listen to this know who Chef Sam is, but I remember it was I think it was the Khabib, it was Khabib McGregor weekend. That was a tough one for me for many reasons, and not really worth getting into, but your boy had some breakdowns of sorts, and to barely pull myself, really one of the things that really set me off was waking up to find out that Chef Sam was no longer with us, and it was just a reminder of and then I think apropos to this card, which we'll talk about, lost my coach to suicide, another one just months later. So a lot of the times when it's a big hubbub and everybody's getting caught and the brouhaha, so to speak, I just try to make sure to do my best, because I'm not the best at it, obviously, but it's just a reminder for us to think about those. Maybe who we haven't heard from, or who, are too nice to really, call attention to themselves. Just, make sure you keep your eyes open and you're spreading the love, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to do the same too. So with that in mind and trying to be grateful and stress less, I made it a point to really see people who were in town, who made plans or who were trying to make plans. I tried to accommodate as much as I could. And it was awesome, man. I got to have breakfast with an awesome listener of the show. Got to have lunch with some junkies I haven't seen in a while. Got to watch the fights with some junkies I haven't seen in a while. Thanks for the moonshine, Pam and Sam. It was good times, man. So if I got to see you, it was awesome. If I got to do your show, shout outs to Blaine Henry. My man Diehard MMA, who hopefully that was perfect because, again, I felt the more the after weeks of McGregor fight card this week, so being able to go on with my man Clint and do his Monday show, and you guys could get a lot of my early takes, which some changed, but a lot of them circled the drain on where I thought, so the show did not mislead you. Plus, of course, you got my man Clint's takes, right? which are always a solid a reference, if you will. So really appreciate him having me on. Bill Welker, I didn't go on his show recently, although I have before MMA on the Rocks. I got to get him on mine. It was nice to see Billy Welks in the flesh, man. Good dude, Billy Welks. Shouts to Isaac Spooner, who tweeted at the PYM podcast. If you want to tag or share, I will share you guys, by the way. At Dan Tom MMA is me. Sharing the top fives. He was cleaning the house and just popped some top fives on. Hopefully the audio wasn't too annoying. We're definitely rounding the corner on those. Trying to get those a bit better for you, a lot better, at least the top five shows with guests. So thank you, though, for listening to that. JHK was recently on his show with my man Aaron Bronstetter. That was awesome, man. Two genuinely of my favorite people in this space. Who, I don't just share their stuff for a reason. They're dudes who I speak to behind the scenes and stuff, and they're people that some of the select few in this space that I feel comfortable talking to. So they're just such good dudes. So be sure to support them. Fight Site, man. I did a podcast with them as well. Not as much as I feel like I'd like to or am invited to, because I'm so dang busy in it, and I hate that because I love any excuse to jump on with those guys. And you really should support them, by the way. Thefight-site.com. Not just their stuff and sharing it, which is all good because it'll make you a smarter person. But it's worth it, as far as, how far your bucks go, bang for your buck, and how far that buck goes and whatnot. So support them on their Patreon. Everyone, speaking of YouTube, everyone who shared my YouTube post when I hit the 500, I feel like I was just echoing and throwing stuff at a wall, and I'm like, I guess this is what I'll accept. And then y'all came through and were just like, how's this guy only at 500? Anyways, it was ridiculous. It was too kind, but it was very appreciated. So thank you, anybody who shared that. Top 5 trilogies article came out, and I know that was kind of, came and went, if you will, with the week. But, I still holds up even after how that trilogy shook out at UFC 264, which we'll talk about here in a second. And a comeback article, I don't think it's out at the time of I'm recording this, but it should come out today, and it's in relation to Miesha Tate. So in the sense, it's only going to die on the vine for it's only going to be on the vine for a day. So please share that. But more importantly, share and check it out and bookmark it, because I actually did the legwork of over 60 samples since 2013, because that's where, shout out to Reed Coons, Fightnomics. That's where his book's published in December of 2013. I don't know when his research and samples end, but he pretty much did high level and made a lot of Strikeforce and other organizations because of the time frame the book was done in. So what I basically did was I sampled, which pretty much was 90% from the annals of UFC, although there's some Bellator and other things in there as well, and some Japanese stuff as well, if it's relevant. But I pretty much tracked all layoffs, year plus, narrowed it down to 3 years, narrowed it down to 5. Pregnancy turnarounds, I gave numbers, percentages, win rates, and some really interesting statistics if you're a nerd like myself, or if you're a gambler and you want to see some hard probabilities as a jumping off point, or some decent references as a jumping off point. Again, not complete. I didn't track how did Joe Schmo do in Fantasy Fuck League 7. That's probably something real, but yeah, I didn't track that, folks. Excuse me. So check that out, please. I urge you, set your phasers to share there. I don't ask that much at all, but that's one to look out for, as well as my in-depth breakdown, which did not drop yet either. I got that one done earlier this week, and again, it's we'll get to that here in a second. It's it's going to be a technical affair. All right, so on that note, let's jump to UFC 264, where we went 9-3 overall. It's nice to see those numbers return. 1-0 in parlays, 2-1 in props, and 0-2 in straight plays. But then I put on asterisks for 1-2, and I'll try to remember why that is. Dustin Poirier defeated Conor McGregor. First round TKO, doctor's stoppage. A lot of the adjustments that I and many called for, McGregor shown, as far as the orthodox switches to offlet pressure for brief stances, but more front kicks, more leg kicks, but without lead hand work. He was essentially just waiting until Poirier wanted to call his bluff and see if he learned how to fight going backwards again, which it was clear that he did not from the wrestling that McGregor tried to do despite what he claimed and the getting pieced up. I'm not going to Zapruder film where the thing happened. Shout out to my man Eric Nixick and his mom, though. Like, if there is a family where analysis runs in, aside my own, shout out to my Popo Doors, my grandma there, fucking OG gambler. But man, how about Eric Nixick, man? He already got the good coaching from his pops. It would not surprise me that his mom's got the eagle eye. Yeah, man, it's essentially, I think there's truth to a lot of what everybody's saying. It's compounding, it's damage, it happens. And I don't like the excuses. It does suck. I don't wish, even though I was happy to, be right and caught up in the moment, if you will. I never advocate for violence or wish even someone who is advocating for violence like McGregor, physical pain like that. But, it was a pretty karmic night, if you will say. So, that part of me I'm not going to deny, but at the same time I do want to state, don't advocate for violence. No joy when people are in, physical pain. But man, you want to talk about not a very sympathetic figure, right? This guy's done no favors for himself, so it's really tough, It's tough to, pick this card, the one to Zapruder film, and, if we would have put this much, did we put this, I don't even know if we put this much into O'Malley's break, you know what I'm saying? Much less, which we'll get to him too. Much less like, could you imagine how fast we would have found JFK's murderer if, we just had this MMA Twitter energy that we have for Conor? Like, it would be insane. Zapruder footage be damned. Be damned. Christopher Walken, what are you doing here? But yeah, I don't got much to say about that. I think the fight was going one way. It sucks because you technically can't say that, but I believe the fight was going one way between the takedown, the fact that, Dustin Poirier was Joe Duffying him. Joe Duffy, guy who beat Conor McGregor before Dustin did twice. But he, was piecing him up with the southpaw stance. No answers on the back foot. Poirier, I think, had him figured out. And then what history would tell you is that McGregor is not a great nail. He's a good hammer, but he's not a good nail. Just like the guy I keep comparing him to, and now it's kind of coming full circle, BJ Penn. So I don't know if this is like a mix of the George St. Pierre, because, BJ went to the death and, ends up, done between rounds, and Conor says, someone's going out in a stretcher, and he goes out in the stretcher, right? Or maybe it's like the BJ Edgar trilogy, where this kind of, now we just see sadness from here on out. Which I hope not, but yeah, man, these things repeat themselves, and human beings are human beings, and when they're young and they're, whether they're used to money or not, having that kind of money and that kind of power and it's, I don't know who could handle that. Not making excuses for McGregor, by the way, by saying this. I'm just saying, this is a tale as old as time. So, yeah, my sympathy, meters aren't exploding. I'm not going crazy on the Zapruder footage here. Everything I saw was pretty much confirmed, minus the normal finish, which I do wish happened, obviously, right? For many reasons there. Both fighters, I'm sure, do. But yeah, there's really not much to say on that one, right? That hasn't been said. So yeah, McGregor, I know he's making the excuses now, saying he came in with it, and I don't know. It's, he's got the yes men, get another parallel to BJ, and yeah, the whole without shin pads, and I don't even care to give credence for it, folks. All these fighters have to deal with this shit. So, whatever. Next fight, Gilbert Burns defeated Stephen Thompson. I was dead wrong about this one. Me and many were confident in the stylistic matchup. But I should have listened closer to my own analysis as far as Gilbert Burns starting to show more open shots and better setups for his wrestling. And since all the work he's done with Gray Jones and so forth. And, yeah, me to song. Show that here. And big cage be damned. He was didn't care if it was ugly. He was just getting to his shots. And Wonder Boy, man, I love him, but he seems to ask the bed in these spots. So probably no title shot for him, which sucks. So maybe not karmic for him. He's one of my guys, but I also like Gilbert Burns. So whatever. It's Stephen Thompson's had his chances, and so has Burns. So hopefully they can just both be in fun fights. This felt good. Tuivasa defeated Greg Hardy. Oh my goodness. Again, folks, and this is no disrespect to, again, no disrespect to the sport of football. Anybody who loves it, anybody who's played it, and I got respect. You guys know who I'm talking about, and I know y'all who listen. I love you. I'm not coming at your sport. Please, please, please. I know it's sacred in America. Can we just stop? Can we stop? Since nobody could take the sword and the stone better than sadly Brendan goddamn Schaub as far as NFL players to fight in the UFC. If he's our best example still after all this goddamn time, can we stop hyping these dudes? Fighting is something you either have or you don't. And to show that I'm not picking on football, I'll say this that I said on the South China Post morning chat with John Hyunko and Aaron, is that even martial artists, folks, I'm raising my hand here since you guys can't see me, even not all of us, a large majority of us are not meant to fight. Fighting is something you're either wired for, getting hit, or not. A lot of men who think they're men can hit and think that makes them men, no matter what or who they hit. Case in point, Greg Hardy. But women don't hit back. Actually, they do, but you get what I'm trying to say. When they get hit back, it's a problem. So Greg Hardy just threw himself completely out of position. Like, if you look at the footwork, it looks like he's like shooting like a penetration step, but with a left hook. Like two things that make no sense, and he puts himself completely out of position and just gets smashed upside the head and crumbles. It was fucking beautiful. And the fact that I cashed an under, and your boys' luck with unders, like, the gods are looking out for us. It was a good night for the PYM boys, as somebody hit me up on Twitter. So that was fucking amazing. And Tai Tuivasa was doing all the shoeies, and I've never been a bigger fan of it at that point. I didn't care. Contrarian Dan Tom be gone. Because that was some awesome stuff. Sip some coffee there. Arin Aldana defeated Yana Kunitskaya. Man, beautiful left check hook. Gotta love it. I love me the left check hooks there. And I love me some Aldana. I didn't play it, but man, was I happy from a girl. Kidding. Sean O'Malley defeated Chris Moutinho. Man, this was the only play I missed, and it probably should have cashed. I'm not even upset about it because it was a great night, obviously. But again, if you're not going to miss a bet, it's got to go in this case like O'Malley, Moutinho, where the read was as clear as day, and it probably should have been stopped / woulda, coulda, should have been stopped with just a couple more seconds and a couple different decisions. Is very lucky he got out of the first round, which it probably shouldn't have. It probably should have still been stopped after that. When the fighter couldn't make it back to the round. And I'm not being butthurt for a bet. I'm not butthurt. Oh, it was a good night. But I will say, off technicality, aside from all the other many possibilities and feel-good abouts of the almost cashing, technically it kind of should have cashed too, because not just Moutinho being rocked and there's not enough corners or refs willing to step the fuck in, but technically no one's supposed to step in and help the fighter to their corner, or it can be and will and should be declared called off. See Eric Anders versus Thiago Santos, and see what happened with Moutinho at the end of the first round. I think you got cornermen, cutmen, and commission members. Like, there's like 3 people helping him to get this kid to his corner. I feel like, especially since head trauma is only getting worse and stoppages are not getting any better, and neither are corner stoppages or these ref or doctor stoppages. maybe we should, lean more into those type of rules that protect the fighters and, kind of take blame off yourself because it's them who are violating these rules. You don't have to use your judgment call. No, they're clearly rocked because they couldn't make it to their corner. That's why those rules exist. But hey, the fuck do I know? Just bleed, motherfuckers. And even though Moutinho wanted more and lost, it was O'Malley who was big on the injury list. I think 3 of his limbs are compromised. And again, wow, something Dan's been shouting forever keeps continually be proven true. That's crazy. That certainly doesn't happen on this show. It's okay. I'm not being a dick because you guys are the beneficiaries of it, clearly. But yes, tall dudes who cut way too much damn weight for bantamweight is bad. Either for your gas tank, or more importantly, for your limbs. Snap, 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 snap. So yeah, we've already seen O'Malley, not as bad a version, is actually separated on the foot. I forget the name of that injury. But yeah, he's got more ankle and wrist and hand shit going on now. So, yeah. Okay. So hopefully, he, for his own sake of, I don't know how much longer he has at bantamweight, to the fact that we need to see him get steps up and, so see comeuppance given. He needs to take a step up. So yeah. All right. Next fight, Max Griffin defeated Carlos Condit. Max Griffin. I didn't watch this that much. The only 2 parts I watched, apparently it was a good fight, but the only 2 parts I watched was like Max dropping Carlos and then Max, I think, like giving up a position or a guillotine. I'm like, oh yeah, this fight's looking like exactly how I thought. But I heard the guys made a good account of themselves. Michel Pereira. Shout out to my man Zane Simon. I love when Michel Pereira fights just so I can hear my man Zane. It's a friendly zab. I should say that for when Zane's here to defend himself. Defeated Nico Price. I was wrong on this one. Thankfully, it was a light dog shot. Coffee and no food's been killing me. Barely been sleeping and eating, folks. Boy, can't wait for this week to be done. Ilya Topuria defeated Ryan. Possibly Hitler sympathizing Hall. Damn, that's a nickname. Sorry. Yeah, man. It's that went. Topuria took care of him accordingly, I guess. And I'm not hating on Hall, by the way, but if you're gonna say some insensitive anti-Semitic stuff, Dan Tom's gonna call you out for it and not be a big fan of that kind of stuff. Has no play here on this show, because this is a show that actually calls out racism, Unlike other shows where people are fucking flashing white power on the screen multiple times. No, anyways, let's, it's okay, hey, racism isn't real. But yeah, it was, boy. Speaking of racism, Drake is too pleased to be Trevin Giles. I can't. South Africa. He's a real African. He's going to be the first, on his way to be the first real African champion. Sticking up for those farmers, Certainly not colonial roots. Anyways, but, yeah, Drake was surprisingly silent about that this time around, but, he wasn't looking that great. He looked kind of stiff to me, but man, this guy's got some finishing power. He channeled his German super soldier look in South Africa. And he just fucking nailed Jay Giles, man. I picked Jay Giles, so this was one I was wrong on, but I stayed away for a reason. So, yeah, I'll be curious to see what Duplessis does. I better say it right because he seemed to take offense, like he was even calling Dana and Jota to say it right. It's very fitting of the stereotypes, folks. I'm sure he's very sympathetic to other people's pronunciations. Anyways, all right. Jennifer Maia defeated Jessica I didn't watch that. My man Brad Tavares defeated Omari Akhmedov by decision. Death, taxes, and Tavares by decision. I don't mean that as an insult. So hopefully my man Brad did not take it that way, because I know he follows me. He's followed me on some bets before. But that's just where I saw this one going. And to Brad's credit, man, he was trying to finish. For all you third-round players, Brad and his team they ain't fucking around out there. But Omari's tough, man. He is tough to finish. And yeah, I get that some of the rounds were closer, especially if judges are going to get bullshitted by strikes that don't hit, because it's that classic swing hard, don't hit. It usually wins over the commentators and judges alike, right? And not taking a shot at commentators, it's hard for them to see shots that hit live, but because of that sad nature, it's something that I cite because it's nature, and it reverberates through through all the viewpoints, right? From consumers, cage side, through the TV, officials, non-commentary, whatnot. So yeah, and then we closed off that two-legger with Zhalgas Zhumagulov, Kazakh Jim Norton, who defeated Jerome Rivera, who was looking good early, but Zhalgas, man, it's not often you get to cash early, so I actually didn't play Poirier, even though I should have, because it would have cashed. But between that prop hitting and the two decisions, like to ensure profit in your first two fights, like it's so rare to do that. In a perfect world, we'd all try to do that, but if you try to do that, you get yourself in trouble because you'd just be betting things that aren't based off of analysis, value, etc. But when the stars align and the play aligns like that way, and then to further align further, it actually fucking hits. My goodness. I'd be a real dummy to not stress discipline. Although, yeah, it always coulda, woulda, shoulda been a more winning night. But I'll take it, man, because, again, I'm not victory lapping here because I will readily admit I've had way more losing nights in 2021 than I've had winning. And most of us have, to be honest. So don't let anybody bullshit you. But, I will enjoy it. Last note here. Trump Zenhog. Trump was there. We didn't get a cutaway to him, though. And we didn't get Zenhog, which I think Trump was disappointed in that data. I came here to see the Zenhog. I heard good things. Hey, Trump, you sound a little stuffed up. I think it's a COVID moment. I want to see the Zenhog. Yeah, we didn't get to see Zenhog, and I think Trump was disappointed. There's three things I love in life: Coke, soda, and Zenhog. Sorry, folks. I try to bring levity to the fucking political bullshit we have to deal with in this sport. And you gotta make fun of both sides. Speaking of which, data, who makes better cages? You or Biden? That's a good one, Trump. I really don't know. Jesus Christ. All right, folks. What's the time here? We're gonna cut through this. 28:34. I didn't lose y'all with the football or political jazz, because Dan Tom can't help himself but be goddamn contrarian sometimes. I don't know what the fuck's wrong with me. All right, let's move on to UFC Vegas 31, UFC on ESPN 26, UFC Makhachev versus Moises. Islam Makhachev minus 820, Thiago Moises plus 570. Wrote this one up on my in-depth breakdown. Pretty much, Moises, man, out of respect, I say either sprinkle on him or pass, but the official pick is Makhachev by decision. I actually would love a grappling fight, and I think Makhachev could win that. It looks like he is training with guys who are threatening to leg lock him, because Moises is one of those IBJJF guys who actually knows and does leg locks. And I'm sure they have gotten better at that over the years. I'm just stereotyping gi jiu-jitsu and trying to shit on IBJJF, so excuse me. But no, Moises is really good. I've underestimated him before, although I was still kind of stand by my reads. I think that he's quietly improved, though, and to my credit, did not condemn him. Instead, cashed on him to make back for that pretty bad decision against Bobby Green, although with the way Bobby Green fights, and the way these judges are, it's like, ugh. Probably should have seen that coming, right? Anyways, neither here nor there. Moises has shown improved countering ability. His confidence is getting there. He's very durable, which is why I think it's going to go long. His counter right hands seem to be the common culprit for both guys, except for Moises also has the culprit of body work, which sadly I don't think will play too much, because Makhachev will kick to the body, but he doesn't punch there all that often, or as much as I'd like. He does punch there. He will throw a two and sit into one. but also southpaws, which Makhachev is. And Robert Watley beat him. I think Jason Knight fought him with a southpaw stance back in the day. Beneil Dariush beat him. I know that was primarily wrestling. I know he beat Michael Johnson, Moises did, but of course Michael Johnson was piecing him the fuck up on the feet before Moises hit a Hail Mary submission. And even though I completely disagree, with all due respect to Mark Montoya in Alexander Hernandez's corner with Hernandez thinking that he won the fight, Hernandez did have his best moments from, not so surprisingly, southpaw. So I think it's going to be a real saving grace for Makhachev, who no longer just chases aggressively with his check right hook, or right hook coming forward, I should say, like he did with Adriano Martins that got him caught by a check right hook against the southpaw again. Another reason why I keep saying the southpaw versus southpaw check right hooks. I think that was another fight where you go back and read the breakdown where I picked Makhachev, but I was like, he's got to watch out for Martins' check right hook. And I'm like, God damn it. Why do I call southpaw versus southpaw match? Why do I analyze them right and then pick them wrong? Anyways, it makes it harder to toot my own horn on the south. As Bronstetter calls me, the southpaw whisperer there. But yeah, anyways. Yeah, so I those shots will be live, counter rights on both sides. Opportunistic finishes will be live for the underdog, but favorite should roll. But yeah, I ain't touching it. Either just sprinkle the money line, which is up to plus 570, which means that the plus 700 inside the distance line I saw earlier is probably even higher than that. Which is, if you want to sprinkle on that main event, that's probably how you do it. Misha Tate minus 142, Marion Renault plus 120. A bit leveling out. Misha was getting up toward minus 150, which bummed me out. But luckily, I jumped on her around the minus 122 or 125 mark, depending on which house I'm referencing for my own grab. And she's still at a reasonable chalk entry point price if you want to put your money on a 57-month layoff. I know that's not usually where my money goes. However, you know how I always say that, like, it seems like that, that ring rust over 1 year rule, that we were hard and fast. And a lot of that shouts to Fightnomics Reed, who I'll give a further shout here and shout it and linked in my article, because I do respect the man's work. But I also thought respectfully that it just wasn't much of a factor in recent years. And I've said it all the time, and I've always brought up a bunch of anecdotal examples to you guys. Well, guess what? I actually dived into the numbers. And although, again, I didn't go through a complete thing, I sampled over 60 relevant high-level fights since, or comeback turnarounds, layoffs since 2013. And roughly 57% is the win rate for fighters who come off a year-plus layoff. That's roughly 20% jump from the 35% that it did sit on from my man Reed's research. Again, I don't claim to have the definitive numbers on here, because I do not. But I did do a decent amount of legwork and sampled a healthy amount of samples to at least help portend the trends that we, and I specifically, have been seeing and citing on this show. And I'm very hesitant to say that because I'm presenting something with bias, and I was really careful not to do that. In fact, of the samples, there's 3 no contests in there. The no contests are like Leon Edwards, Bilal Muhammad, because Leon Edwards coming off a turnaround. John Jones, Cormier 2, where we saw him knock the guy out, and we saw pretty much a definitive round for, and where it was trending for Edwards, Bilal. And then the other no contest was Brock Lesnar, who got a decision victory over Mark Hunt. So those are pretty arguable wins, right? But I included them in the sample sizes, and even as no contest, they actually hurt the percentage, folks. They bring the percentage down. So I was not biased in how I selected these. I went through men-female rosters active. I went through people released year by year. I went through random fight cards, card by card, pay-per-view by pay-per-view, tracking all these things. So, and when you narrow down that group even further, as Misha Tate is amongst a more minority of the group with a longer layoff to 3+ year layoffs, the winning percentage is 71.88%. So it actually gets better. right? Like I was saying, these long layoffs, whether it's George St. Pierre or fighters maybe that shouldn't have won, but they still did, like Jessica Penne. The percentages got better. Now, when you get to 4 and 5 years, the sample size gets really low, right? I believe it was like something like, I don't know, like 5-2-1 or something. 4-5, yeah, I think it's like 5-2-1. So the percentage gets adjusted to a 68, I believe, win percentage. 68%, roughly a 68% win percentage. If you're coming off roughly a 5-year or more layoff, you're still good. You're still more probable to win than you're going to lose, which is an insane turnaround. And again, I went through, champions, this and that. And when you go through those more of that later group, by the way, you do get everything from GSP's comeback to, Bellator's Legend League with Hoist and fucking Ken and Kimbo. You get, Saku's return at Ryzen and Shinya Aoki. Against Shinya Aoki, you get, Antonio McKee's return. So be wary, that, according to the criteria that I set out for myself, that's what it outlines. But yeah, I list examples. Even pregnancy return rate, which was 3-3, and I'm sure there's more, but it was surprising because, not as much moms as you would think. It's a lot of the same moms that fighting. It's why it seems like the narrative is there. And a lot of the moms either had their kids before their careers, like Montana De La Rosa or Kat Zingano, or they adopt midway through their career, like Chris Cyborg or Kayla Harrison, right? So I just tracked high-level female fighters who had children like in the middle of their careers, middle of their primes in the UFC, and what did that turnaround look like? And there was only 3 of those instances that I sampled from or could really find without going, into like some debutante or some really random, Strike Force challengers shit, right? Again, at 2013 to now. And yeah, 3-3 for a 50% win rate, which I know is not very helpful and pretty obvious there, but age was not really a factor. Because, the age and the cross sections for these, for both female and men, kind of run the board. And I had statistics on, like, it is clear that if you did it once, you were more likely to succeed on your first comeback and fail on your second. There's some people who flip that on their head. There's some people that scatter between. But with the female pregnancies, I noticed that a lot of them cited the strength and acclimation. But it was strange because a lot of them only waited like a year to come back. They all get the itch at the same time. Minus Dern was probably going to have that record for a minute, that like 4-month return to Rebos. And that was a loss, and she was a young one. So that sample size is kind of everywhere. But it would make you lead to believe that this won't be the best Misha that the second fight will be. And I'm sure there's some truth to that for anybody coming off a layoff, no matter the circumstances. And I don't have the clue, so I'm not going to talk too much about pregnancy. I'm not a woman, folks. But I can only imagine, right? And that being said, though, if you look at all these samples and you look at their second fights, their records don't really improve. It goes to 3-2-1 because Nina Nunes has not fought a second time since dropping to her comeback fight to Dern, right? She's accounted for in that sample as well. So interesting stuff. Go check out that article. But for this one, the stats that are relevant to the style, aside from the statistical woo-woo, why I'm backing Tate, biasedly yes, but also why unbiasedly I'm backing Tate, is because Mary Renault, man, I'm a big fan of her, but, she isn't as much intangible for the comeback. Well, Renault's retiring and is an older fighter, and not that age is something that I like to harp on. I'm the one who loves to stand for the older fighters, and in these female divisions, age is less detrimental, man. You can be older and be kicking ass, and a lot of times, I like the I like the more mature, mamas to kick some ass, and Renault has that in her. But for whatever reason, she just doesn't pull the trigger. She gives position on the feet. She back seat space on the cage, gives position on the ground, and unless she gets the opportunistic counter right hand, which she throws less and less, she has to rely on opportunistic submission, which The only person that submitted her from guard was 2x Ronda Rousey losses back in the day for Tate, like a decade ago. I don't think that's going to happen. She's an excellent top control grappler, and Marion Renault has been taken down in 10 of her last 10 fights. So I think Tate rolls here, and I played the chalk. I know, it's crazy. To fall me off that cliff, but with everything going on this week, or this card, it's not a great one for betting, and that's where my money ended up. Next fight, Mateus Gamrot. Minus 215, Jeremy Little Heathen Stevenson, as Goldberg says in his first intro. Back at UFC 76, as Jeremy Stevens, who was a plus 180 underdog, debuted when Chuck Liddell was still champion. Sure, Chuck lost it that night, that Jeremy debuted, but still, it's pretty crazy to say, which is true. He debuted when Chuck Liddell was still champion. That being said, I've been a defender of Jeremy Stevens more than most, especially made a lot of decent dog money there on his run when, as I used to say, he was like the junkyard dog who figured out how to work his own chain, that Josh Emmett Duha Choi run and whatnot, but he's still pretty inconsistent. It's like sometimes he learns how to feint and he brings his footwork to work with them, and sometimes he just is Jeremy Stevens zombie mode. Either way, as we saw with the Calvin Keita fight, even when he had the leg kick looks, which won't be as easy this time because Gamrot, though he has been fighting more from orthodox, is a southpaw fighter, lists himself as a southpaw fighter, but switches stance a lot, so he's going to have that options. And Gamrot has a lot of calf kicks that come his way because he throws them himself, being a staple member now of American Top Team. So couple that with the wrestling, you could argue that he's kind of the guy made to beat Jeremy Stevens. The one thing that worries me here, though, is Stevens, again, for all his capabilities and incapabilities, and even with the times where he's actually trying to be smart and having capabilities at the same time, you got to respect that because he's a guy that, like with Dennis Bermudez, you lean over heavy on that lead foot, he's going to flying knee you in the face. And Gamrot can do that. He dips and rolls heavily. I like that he rolls off his crosses. I like that he's always feinting and working off the level change. But against an explosive guy, this is why rear uppercuts tend to work well on Gamrot. But against an explosive guy who also can have those knees like Stevens, that could be very dangerous, especially if he either looks or tries to take that low single that he does. Now, I think he can hit it on Stevens. Actually, probably one of the better entries to finish on him. But the risk versus reward, there will be risk in there is what I'm saying. So I don't blame anybody that played Gamrot from minus 170, even minus 215. That's still, if you're looking for a heavy chalk to dump on, I don't blame anybody putting it on Gamrot in this spot, especially hindsight. How many more times, again, all due respect to Jeremy Stevens, how many more times are you going to have to fade this guy, right? So I don't blame anybody for putting Gamrot in parlays. I don't know how I'm going to use him. I think you can pretty much get him with even money if you put him with another southpaw lower, with with Rodriguez. Get a plus 155. You add Big Fig to the equation, another southpaw there, and maybe you do the southpaw parlay, or you play him straight up, or you do what I did, plus 225 Gamrot by decision. Could he knock Stevens out similar to the Holtzman one? Perhaps. But I feel like Holtzman not as durable as Stevens, despite looking like a damn tank. And also, they got a headbutt and back of the head shots that, I'm not trying to take away from Gamrot, but that did happen, and it looked to like buckle Holtzman before the knockout. So, Stevens, I did predict him to lose by knockout to Cater. But that was Cater and Gamrot, not the biggest for this division, and I think he's got to fight smart. I think he's just going to frustrate and point fight him like Moicano did, in a similar spirit, I should say, not like him. So Gamrot by decision is the play, and I don't blame any other angles on how you want to utilize that money line for him. Next fight, Adolfo Vieira minus 235, Dustin Stolfus minus 194, Stolfus. You like Germany, huh? Dude's really into Germany. Man, when I covered him Contender Series, I'm like, did that guy just throw up a questionable hand signal? Which, like, I feel like now I gotta, like, question all hand signals now. It's like, black people aren't allowed to wear hoodies and, like, white dudes aren't allowed to have hand signals anymore. Like, is that what it's come to? Just kidding. I'm kidding, folks. Kidding. Jesus Christ. Anyways, all right, Dan, stay on target. Stolfus. I love Stolfus' last fight. You can hear like the commentators like trying to out-German each other on how to say his name. They're like, Stolfus. Eins. Anyways, I'm going to pick Adolfo Vieira here. I'm not confident. In hindsight, it could be a parlay piece. Stolfus seems calm. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or Luta Libre, I should say, is his specialty. Grappling. He's been training at Syndicate, so if he's going to show improvements, it's now. But I just think he's too lax to gas off Adolfo Vieira, but I also don't think he's pretty technical, and because he's lax, I don't know if he's going to give anything to Vieira, who I imagine is going to be playing conservative, right, after his last time out, so maybe over angles for that one. Let's see. Yeah, over to. Ooh, I might actually sprinkle on some over there. I'm seeing some plus money on some overs. I say overs or some chalks. That's about it. But I stayed away as of now, although I may be sprinkling on them overs. Next fight, Gabriel Benitez minus 164. Billy Quarantine. Billy Quarantillo. Billy Quarantine. Out of the quarantine, plus 136. I went to his IG, and he was just like, day 2 of quarantine in the books. I'm like, every day is an easy day of quarantine for Billy Quarantine. Come on now. Buffalo's finest in South Florida, Tampa. Jesus Christ. You know me, I love me some Billy Q, man. I don't care he lost his last fight. I stick by my guy. But no, all bias aside, there is some things to worry about because he did lose to a southpaw, and his 1 KO loss by Michel Quinones was a karate-based orthodox fighter who would switch to southpaw and switch to southpaw that he did for that head kick KO. But like Billy Q said, it's about a baseball bat is the only thing you're going to stop him with. And Michel Quinones, though that fight was technically at 145, that was like only one of 2 fights that the guy had at 145 because he was gigantic. He was on his way out of that weight class. He was way too big for that weight class. That is Michel, who knocked out Billy Quarantine. Not that it stopped Quarantine from winning or knocking dudes out at lightweight, who he, by the way, has a better record than Benitez at lightweight. But yeah, so he's gonna have Benitez here, another southpaw. It was a decent sized southpaw, by the way, Benitez. But yeah, clearly I think that length parities and size parities, I don't think bodes well for him, which is why he's better at 145, and which is maybe why Barbosa, to the dismay of many, including myself, did go to 145 and is doing better. Because even though he's a different fighter, he doesn't have quite the same shuffling nature, like auto shuffle, like a Homer Barbosa. He has a lot of that same spirit stylistically. He has a lot of it. That is Benitez, who I'm a big fan of, one of my favorite tough Latam guys. I say it all the time. But he is essentially that IQ test, right? Of, are you going to grapple this guy and pressure him? Because even though he actually has some decent layers and has gotten better, he's got those kind of step back pull counters. He's got much better uppercuts and boxing in the pocket, and can counter in combination more. He can take the southpaw angles like Tucker did. But the problem is he doesn't fight as well going backwards. And unlike Tucker, he doesn't have that level-changing takedown. That was the thing that really won Tucker the fight, I believe. Body work, which quietly when I went to look back, I'm sorry, Billy Q, I'm not trying to out you, dude, but I feel like you're so tough that the body is open, and some corners have already spotted that, even though they couldn't take advantage of it, like Kyle Nelson's. And you see that even in another fight as well. The body seems to be the way to attack Billy Quarantine. So that's going to be worth looking out for. Like, if Benitez stops Billy Quarantine, I think it's probably going to be a liver kick more than a head kick. But I do think that it's liver kick or bust. Benitez does punch the body too, which is nice. I didn't remember as much. I'm like, oh yeah, Benitez definitely works the body. But you could tell that as far as doing damage, it's going to be a kick that's going to have to damage that body. And that's what you got to watch out here for Quarantillo. But Quarantillo, thankfully, pressures like a madman, and he's in that small cage. And I don't think Benitez, similar to another southpaw we covered, McGregor, I don't think he fights great going backwards outside of those couple moves and layers. I don't think there's extended layers. And Billy Quarantine can get hit on the first shot or two, but he sees it, he rolls with it, and he keeps coming and extends combinations. I think his trip takedown that he does, that like a lot of Alliance guys you would see do, actually probably would work better against a southpaw. because he tends to like to sag off and trip off to that right side when he changes his level for the double. But it's also a takedown that you see reversed a lot, and with Benitez being a decent scrambler and decent defender against the cage, we could see Quarantillo get stuck up. But here's the thing is Benitez never strikes in the clinch, literally. Like, there are repetitive zeros throughout 15 minutes fights where he doesn't land anything from the clinch. He doesn't even attempt it because he's so worried about takedowns that he has totally, because he's been fighting since 2007. They're the same age, but Benitez, by the way, he has double the fights. So he's got some miles on him, and enough miles to proclaim confidently enough to say that he's not developed he's really fucked up and not developed a clinch game because of it, a clinch striking game. He's got his guillotine and his takedown defense he's so damn focused on, that's why. Whereas Billy Quarantine is a really good clinch striker, even though Gavin Tucker, which was the key, Gavin Tucker would change levels and smother to the clinch when Quarantine to combat his pressure, because body work, even though it was good, it still wasn't enough. Even though it was working, it still wasn't enough. That's how much Billy Quarantine comes after you. And maybe because I was just in awe of just a really smart and disciplined game plan and, countering my betting bias on the night of, I didn't realize that Quarantine was actually doing some good work, Billy. But yeah, he was, man. He actually was. It's just Tucker was just super smart and would clench him, knee him to the body, and or hit level-changing takedowns, because he also had the layer of not just takedowns and wrestling offensively that Benitez does not have, but legitimate layers on the ground with a legitimate Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt under Renzo Gracie, which Benitez does not have any of those attributes outside of his guillotine as far as submission grappling goes, folks. So that plus the small cage, I think it's one of those cases kind of like Burns Thompson, where Benitez has been around, but you look at the competition, the quality of the competition, the time he faced the competition, short notice affairs, where they were in their career, and the fact that these were all primarily lower level fighters / lower level strikers. He's never really faced a lot of aggressive grapplers, and when he did, he lost. Although I thought at the time, because I was biased and picked and played Benitez, I thought he beat and should have beat, or at the very least got the draw because of the knockdown against Barzola. You look at it now, especially with refined eyes, that hopefully we've all refined our eyes on scoring, folks. Shout out to the Sean Sheehans of the world, as well as the Bad Call episodes of Ed Gallo from the Fight Site that help keep us in line. But yeah, that fight should have been scored for Benitez. But still, nevertheless, the fact that because, Barzola was able to get takedowns and he wasn't able to do anything because Benitez is a decent scrambler. However, Barzola was able to take his back toward the end, even though he's not a good back taker. And Billy Quarantine is definitely a good back taker, a good ground game. And whether he's ahead on the cards or it's close, you can bet that he's going to pour it on anytime he can get to the back or mount position. And for that reason, I think he can force a stoppage in rounds 2 or 3. I ended up sprinkling on round 3. As you guys know, the average price, or the price that is my default line by the time it gets bet down toward the end of the week at least, you never want to see a round 3 below 1,200. In my opinion, that's too low on value. Really good round 3 finishers will get to the plus 700 to plus 900 mark by Friday or Saturday. Folks, it is Friday, and Billy Quarantine is somehow being listed as a plus 2,000 for the round 3 fighter that he is. Now, Benitez has excellent cardio. Fantastic fucking cardio. He never shows for it to wear, even at elevation. However, the one fight it did kind of show to wear was that Barzola fight, which wasn't at elevation. He was forced to wrestle a lot, I believe. So, not that I'm counting on Benitez to gas. It's more that I'm counting on the dog in Quarantine, because win or lose, Billy Quarantine will fight for your money. It is the season of the scrappy white dude, folks, and they've been cashing. I'm backing my boys. Give me Quarantine, baby. I put a unit on him, 1.5 on Misha, and a unit on Quarantine. If you notice, I do that to adjust the values. That's why my last betting sheet was a winning net, because like I tell you guys and how I put the unit counts, I always go heavy on the chalk, and I count that for whatever my winnings on that heavy chalk play, whether it's a parlay or a big straight play. I use the potential winnings of that as my limit for that week. So my dog shots and whatever, my prop shots and flyers are going to be smaller amounts because they're plus money. You don't have to put as much to win as much, right? And falls into my attempt at a budget there, a system at a budget. So anyways, Put a unit on Billy Quarantine. Anyway, we got D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez, minus 300. Pretty sure D-Rod is a reference to his dick, but okay. Preston Parsons, man, plus 245. It was pretty cool. A little bit insight. I still don't know if he's with Ludus and Billy. What's his name? Billy? Coach Billy. Fuck. But he had a really tight-knit team. I know there's a lot of places to train down there in South Florida. Preston's is a tank. He's listed at 5. Is he 5'11"? I don't know. We'll see. I think he's like more like 5'10". He was like 5'8", 5'9", man. He was like 5. He looked like the same height as Jeremy Stevens when they were going to town back in like 2015. So, and he was only like an 18-year-old kid then. Preston was. So to see him like go up the ranks is crazy. He like really like slugged it out with Jeremy Stevens. Surprise, surprise to no one. And sure enough, he ended up getting knocked out in his fight. A couple months after that session, I witnessed to Mike Perry via knee. Since then, though, Parsons has been doing pretty good. The only guy he lost to was Valdir, something I forget. He's a old school guy. He fought like Chris Weidman back in Ring of Combat to a decision and shit. And he got guillotined by him via that move. Although he actually got calf kicked up prior to that. I don't think he's got to worry about the calf kicks because Rodriguez doesn't really throw him, and he's a southpaw. However, he did get rocked and almost knocked out against a lower-level southpaw in one of his Titan fights, that is Preston Parsons. He ended up finishing the guy because he re-wrestles him for singles, like I always preach. He's definitely good with those moves, and he's got his chains and systems. Of course, I know Preston because his coach Billy was under Neil Melanson, so they cross-trained there, came out to Alliance from Florida, and I came from Vegas to Florida to train with Neil as well, hence that connection. But yeah, so I'm happy for the kid, wishing him well here, but I do think D-Rod rolls. It's the small cage show that worries me. D-Rod was taken down a couple times in his last fight. I think like 2 out of 4 or 3 out of 6, something like that. So, which is, not as good as his takedown defense rate, represents, but that's also kind of weird because, again, he hasn't fought too many really dedicated grapplers there. And he's going to have one here. However, again, Preston can be caught on the way-in. Rodriguez has a decent guillotine and has some decent takedown defense and get-up, especially against the cage. So, he's got his nice circles off with his jab, L-steps, things like that are going to serve him well. So I do like D-Rod here. But I wouldn't be the maddest in the world to be wrong about that, given Preston Parsons' background. Good to see a kid make it. He's wanted this for a while, since he started, so good on him. Amanda Lemos, minus 550. Monstrat Ruiz, plus 410. This is a bench. If you got in on early, like my man Clint, congrats. That's a good chalk price for Lemos. I like her. She counters in combination, which is rare. But it's essentially it's going to be an IQ test for her, as is anybody who fights Monstrat Ruiz, which is the scarf hold IQ test. Can you avoid the head and arm choke, which means can you avoid the scarf hold? And can you get to your base and to your knees and take someone's back with the scarf hold that Cheyenne Bays kind of failed to do and was trying for in her defense. But yeah, I'm going to take Lemos here. Probably get a decision. I don't really care to pinpoint it. It's way too chalked up for me. Khalid Taha, minus 154. Sergey Marzov, plus 130. I came into this week leaning Taha, probably because I've been so wrong on him, and he's underestimated or overperformed. I know he lost against Barcelos, but, aside from that, I think the no contest was, just for, weed or something stupid, too. And Sergey Marzov, didn't look great, but I have to remind myself that Marzov's only lost to good guys, like Evloev. And I also have to remind myself that, although the inflated lines and the hype is certainly real, Umar Nurmagomedov actually had some really good skills, both kicking at range and takedowns, and pretty much just kept Morozov on defense with an insane amount of discipline volume, and that would have been a tough fight for anybody. This fight, however, against Khalid Taha is in the small cage, and I like that because Taha, even though he's a dangerous counterpuncher and has some German wrestling credentials for what that's worth, he's still not the best defensively taken down, and he's not good at shutting down clinches. He allows guys to clinch with him, And guys have been able to establish double unders on him somewhat easily, and that's going to be really bad news because Morozov, a lot of pancration style fighters do, or a lot of fighters, from that, region of the world, they operate really well from body lock. So does Morozov. He does really well. And even with like the M1 cages that are shortened cages, where it's only like half the cage, he still was very much able to use that in his game to push fighters up, chain his takedowns, use his level-changing shots to come up to the body lock, and vice versa. So I actually really like that a lot. I mean, he throws some really decent kicks too. Again, he had a longer, much better, much more active kicker who actually was also the better wrestler in Umar Nurmagomedov last time. He won't have that here. He's going to have a shorter fighter who boxes, who doesn't kick, and doesn't have as good kick defenses or kick answers, although he still will have to watch out for Khalid Taha's potent counters. But outside of getting caught by a clean counter, I think Morozov can roll here. I think he's going to get him by decision, and the odds are looking that way too with the way these totals are stacked. So with that the case, I'm not going to sweat the technique and the result, or not so much the result, but the method, I should say. And instead I'll go for moneyline results and just take Morozov at plus 130. I sprinkled small, just a half unit. Excuse me, sorry about that. I sprinkled small, just like a half unit there. So, and I know my guy Clint was on that. I'm pretty sure I picked Taha on the show, just because again that was my lean going in. I didn't research it, but after researching, that's where I came up to. So, for whatever that's worth. Miles Johns minus 190, Anderson Dos Santos plus 160. I was interested in looking at Anderson Dos Santos until I remembered how Miles Johns flips a lot of his perceived stereotypes on his head by getting the third round finish. Hopefully he can find that jab and stay consistent, that output. Hopefully he's still working with Fortis MMA. Saif Sayoud is a great coach to work with, good camp. So I'm going to go with Johns and stay away, though. The earlier line, like minus 170 to the minus 180s on Johns, I feel like that could be a steal in retrospect, but Anderson Dos Santos is another fighter who will fight for your money if you're backing the dog here. I am not. I'm picking Johns and staying away. Next fight, Francisco Figueiredo minus 300, Malcolm Gordon plus 235. I'm going to take Big Fig, but it'll be interesting because he's a top player Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, whereas Malcolm Gordon is a very opportunistic and good bottom player. That said, Figueiredo comes from the Marajo brothers grappling team. Really well-schooled jiu-jitsu guys familiar with leg locks and of the sort. And I think Big Fig can do enough bullshitting and controlling, on the feet. I think he's going to try to make it as boring as possible and will likely succeed. So I'll take Big Fig. Didn't play him, but he was one of those that I threw out there that you could maybe include on a southpaw parlay that I may throw in for fun for plus money. Rodrigo Nascimento minus 350, Alan Badeau plus 280. Did not research this at all. Nascimento should roll, but for that price, good luck. I'm not going to read off the other fights because they don't seem to be happening. So, all right, how did we do on time? Oof, we just made it over an hour. Sorry, folks. You guys call me for not getting it under the expedited. It's okay. Taking Makhachev over Moises. Taking Tate over Renault. Taking Gamrot over Little Heathen Stevens. Taking Vieira over Stolfus. It's the Germans. Taking Billy Quarantine over Benitez. Taking D-Rod over Preston Parsons. Taking Lemos over Ruiz. Taking Morozov over Taha. Taking Johns over Dos Santos. Taking Big Fig over Gordon. Taking Nascimento over Badeau. Parlay piece is Gamrot. You can tie him to another southpaw and D-Rod for close to even money. You can make it a trifecta of southpaw with Big Fig for like plus 155-ish. I did play Quarantine round 3 plus 2,000. Gamrot by decision plus 225. Both of those for a quarter unit. I'll probably sprinkle a quarter unit on an over for Stolfus Vieira to be contrarian, possibly. We'll see. Straight plays, I took Billy Quarantine at 1 unit plus 38. Took Tate minus 122, although she's now more toward minus 140, 1.5 units. And Morozov plus 120 at 0.5 units. Avoid whatever you like. Don't listen to me. It's a crazy week. Just bet carefully. Hopefully we can keep this positive momentum going. I'm glad I was able to help y'all with your picks and plays. You guys can more than welcome to tip at the PayPal at mixedmartialanalyst.com, as this program is free, although I reservedly say that because A, I hate advertising, and B, the people that keep tipping there are the dudes who keep doing it over and over again. Y'all stop. I'm glad I'm able to help you on your winnings, but y'all are too fucking kind. If you want to support this show for free to both of us, to everybody, pretty much, go to mixedmartialanalyst.com where that PayPal link is on the right. You may have to toggle on the mobile, but you will also see Onnit and Amazon click-throughs. I know they are corporations that we don't necessarily like to shop from, but if they are a necessary evil for you, then go ahead and ease your conscience by killing two birds with one stone, adding 2 extra clicks for the price of nothing. You just go to the website, click on the banner, and boom, you do your shopping at Onnit. Boom, you do your shopping at Amazon. It cuts back a small percentage of your sale at no extra cost to you, and it goes right back to this show, which I guarantee you it goes to. Believe me. So I appreciate you guys. No read-throughs today. It won't give me your personal information if you want to have a David Carradine one night in Bangkok. And yeah, you thought you were gonna get through without that, right? Without that joke. But I won't call you out. I will pontificate on the items purchased. You can also support on YouTube. Subscribe, Daniel Tom MMA. Give this video a like if you're already there. Shout out to all your YouTubers in the comments. It was a crazy week. I didn't get to reply to you like I normally do. Apologies that I'm late on that. And thank you for all you guys' 5-star ratings and review on Apple Podcasts for the Protect Your Neck podcast, which you can subscribe, share, and find at the PYM podcast. I will try to tag and retweet you if you tag us or me at Dan Tom MMA. Good luck on your picks and plays this weekend, and always protect your neck.